Welcome back. The Assistant Comptroller General of the Nigeria Customs Service, Mrs. Kathleen Ekekezie, has explained that the difficulties they're facing, or she's been talking about the difficulties they're facing protecting the country's borders. She was speaking at a stakeholders forum on the impact of the border closure on Nigeria's economy, organized by the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Lagos. Do take a listen.
We've had meetings in our headquarters in Abuja with the customs of the Republic of Benin. You will have beautiful agreements up to the point that they said they do not have escort vehicles because the transit protocol says that you must not break the seals, okay? I know I am talking of the international trade now. You don't break the seal. You must take it under escort to the border of the final country of destination, and you hand it over to the customs official, who will now give landing certificates. Nothing like that. We begged, we pleaded, the current CGC had gone there twice. I know that very well. And no change. Okay, they will start by, okay, they are going to comply. For the first week, you will only see cars of 203 model. You will not even see 212 model vehicle. You will not see that being escorted by these people, by their customs. You will never see anything. But you see those vehicles in Nigeria. We are not saying that as an organization that is absolutely difficult, impossible to man the border. We are not talking of the approved border now. We are talking of our porous. There are like our former CG said, if we stretch our hands, we cannot even cover our borders. It's difficult. Do you know that the people in the north, you see the smugglers passing, you see them far off. They know the terrain of the desert. Your custom is manning this area, but you now see them. They just watch you. It's like when they are going, chase them if you can. That is how it is. They know the terrain. So when you now block that side, they will start another, they will open up another angle. That is what has been happening. It's extremely difficult. But the important thing is that because we know that we are signatories to all these protocols, that is why we have been engaged and engaged and engaged. And nothing is coming out of it. It's extremely difficult for our president to now wake up one morning and decide, no, I've had enough. Shut down that border. Maybe that will make everybody to come to a round table like this one and talk. That is where we are today. It's unfortunate when things like this happen. The innocent people will suffer. It is terribly, very sad. We know that there are genuine traders, there are manufacturers who need to carry their goods across the border. Some of them have been lined up, but they got caught up. In fact, the border was not just closed like that. No. It wasn't just shut, suddenly. A lot of announcements. Please let us be compliant. Please let us be compliant before it finally happened. But then some of the consignments that were lined up, which had paid duty, were allowed to go immediately. But please, sir, the border was not totally shut down. Genuine people sail past. No, I am not talking of goods. Because see, how can you even decide which one is genuine now? Because there are many of them out there. It's unfortunate that this is happening. I feel pained. But it is because of non-compliance. Why can't people wake up and do the right thing? Why? Why are people like that? Why don't you do the right thing? If you do the right thing, if you're compliant, why won't custom do their work the way it should be done? Why will you an armored vehicle and you are doing some rickety pushes when everybody is sleeping, when genuine people are sleeping, why would you do that? If you could import a vehicle that is armored, for Christ's sake, you should be able to pay the duty for that vehicle. How could you put such a vehicle under that kind of condition if the person does not have criminal tendencies initially? This is the genesis of all this. So if we want some of these things to stop, please, people should be compliant.
Okay, joining us now is the Assistant Director of Research and Advocacy at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Matthew Ojo, to look at some of these issues. Dr. Ojo, thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, just to find out first, what exactly informed LCCI bringing these stakeholders together at this point?
Well, if you remember, at the onset of this decision by the government to close the land borders, we did raise our concern that, okay, there should be an approach that ensures that we look inwards. So we allowed enough time. There have been deliberations surrounding this border closure by some other people. But we wanted a situation whereby we bring the stakeholders, those who are actively involved, those who are affected, bring the customs, bring the Manufacturer Association of Nigeria, the farmers, the rice farmers, poultry farmers. Let's hear. It's been like since August, like 5 months now. Let them talk. Let them discuss. We want to hear from them the pains they are going through or the gains they've accrued over time as a result of this policy, so that we can at least reach a common ground and then be able to engage the government further. And I'm happy you heard the customs and all they've said concerning the land at border. You see, it's important for us because trade, if you consider the figures released for the third quarter for 2019, trade contributed an average of like 15% to the GDP. And if you also look at our trade with the rest of Africa, trade with the sub-region, ECOWAS, stands at around 47%, almost half of the trade we do with Africa, is done with the sub-region. And in terms of value, the total trade around that third quarter also says 1.8 trillion, both import and export. For import, around 192 billion naira. For export, like around 1.6 trillion. So the border closure, you can see, has affected that amount of trade going between us and the sub-region. So we felt it's important for us to have an assessment so far how this has been faring in terms of trade and how it's affecting people. When you talk about how it's affecting, it's both positive and negative, and so many.
Well, we've had a lot of people say that it has yielded more benefits than perhaps the challenges.
Yeah, that was why we had to do this. The farmers were there, and you could hear them praying that the border should be kept closed forever. But people like manufacturers, those who came from Man, they gave scenarios and examples of companies almost closing down because they don't just send what they produce to the sub-region. They also get some of their inputs coming in from these West African countries. Now, if this policy has made it difficult for some of them to produce their inputs, or some of their inputs are there at the borders and they can't come in. So, of course, it's going to affect employment because they have to lay off. So it was an avenue for both sides to come and air their views so that we can reach a common point. However, one thing that was common and general, both from the side of those who wanted the borders to remain closed and those who wanted to be open, is that this is not a sustainable approach.
Exactly, which brings me to the next question. Like, having looked at the pros and cons now, how sustainable do you think this border closure will be, considering the negative impact it's having on the economy, and we've of course seen the inflation rates being skyrocketing?
Well, like I said, the stakeholders have all agreed that it's not sustainable. But what we have always said is this situation provides an opportunity. You can see from what the customers have said, they have challenges. Okay, challenges manning the land borders. It's a vast area to cover. So government needs to start looking at how we can address some of these issues. We ask questions. How many of our land borders have scanners? How many of our land borders operations involve technology, usage of technology? How do we ensure that, we make enough gains as a country from this temporary closure, so to say? So it's an opportunity to look inwards. It's understandable that our neighbors are not following the ECOWAS protocols in trading with Nigeria. They are taking advantage of us. That is understandable. And the concerns of the government, you cannot just push it aside. There are genuine concerns in terms of security, in terms of dumping on us. But then beyond that, that is on their own side. On our own side, what can we do? Do we just sit down and wait until they agree to comply, and then we open the borders and we go back, to the status quo? So for us...
But is there any other thing that the government can actually do besides the border closure?
Of course.
In this regard?
There are so many things that already, the ECOWAS set up a committee to look into all this.
Yes. And
what will end up, you have them coming to appeal to both parties, you comply and you allow the borders to be open. But beyond this action, we need to see visible actions that shows that we want to control it from within.
And what would be
when you talk about...
We're talking about, look, infrastructures. Some of these borders you go to, you just see two drums and a pole. Do we have technologies at these land borders? Do we have scanners in the major, if we can't have in all the land? Because it's a vast area, you have to be sincere. But in those major areas, do we have those in place? So if you have all that, and then you also need to strengthen the institutions. You heard the smugglers, they know all these routes. Then those who are supposed to man the borders are also supposed to know more than these smugglers, or know as much as they do. So you need to strengthen the institutions. Okay, they are already doing a lot, but there's so much they can do when they don't have the necessary tools to carry out, their duties. So it's from both sides, from our neighbors to following the laid-down rules and protocols when it comes to trading, and from us also ensure that even if you fail to comply, you can still bring this thing in, because we have put in enough measures to ensure that you will fail in dumping those products on us. So, the gains are there. Of course, in local production, you have people now patronizing locally produced goods. Hitherto, they would have waited for the imported ones. And that was what we've seen, inflation rising, for the past 5 months, it's been on the rise. And the latest figures is the highest in 21 months, almost 2 years. It's understandable. But you see, the greatest strategy would be that after all this suffering, we still go back to status quo. I hope you understand. So if we are bearing all these difficulties now, we should see and we should also make moves to tighten our own borders from our own end to ensure that if neighboring countries fail to comply, they will still find it difficult to bring in those goods and that will affect our economy. Also, you see, in terms of manufacturing, because while you have the farmers jubilating, we also need to encourage production, not just agro-based production. We also need to, the manufacturers need to be encouraged, because if this continues for too long, some of these companies whose inputs are just raw materials at the borders, they might fold up eventually. And then we already have unemployment as high as 23%.
No, but if you say the farmers are even jubilating, I mean, do we even produce enough, to serve the demand? For instance, in rice production now, and that is why we have quite a number of them going, the prices going high. Do we do mechanized farming and all that?
Yes, you see, there's definitely going to be a lag, okay, between when the policy comes and when you're able to meet demand. Supply is not able to meet demand presently. That's why you have inflation. It's contributing to inflation, because that's not the only thing that has contributed to inflation. However, this period also will help us to look inwards. For us, it's more like an opportunity, okay, to do things right so that we can show up our productive abilities and then also tighten our borders properly. However, in doing that, we shouldn't kill that productive abilities, the little we have for now. And that's why you see people from the Manufacturing Association, they were appealing to customs to create a kind of window for those of them who require inputs from outside to come in. Because as you are blocking products from coming in, also you produce for some of these African countries. So those goods too are not going out.
Now, but we heard the customs
exactly.
lady talk about that. Genuine people still pass the border.
But she said, not goods. We are talking about goods now.
What about the borders up north? Because she also mentioned that the borders up north are open. So how are we checking what is coming in from there and not just here?
I'm not sure I heard us say the borders up north are open. It's just that that porosity is still there. It's porous. That's what she's saying, that the customs are manning this side and you see the smugglers taking other routes. So that the border is porous is not debatable. Everybody knows that. So they are trying their possible best, but we are saying that it's high time we take decisive actions now. We strengthen these institutions. What are we doing with technology? Okay, Nigeria is a vast nation. Some of us just think it's a vast nation. So you can't have men posted at every point of entry in Nigeria, the land borders, I mean. So, but then we can find a way of ensuring that even if they insist on smuggling, they will have little success, in bringing those goods in. Because whether you like it or not, it kills production in Nigeria. When you import almost everything, fresh tomatoes being imported into Nigeria when we produce here. So you see, we try to find a kind of balance such that the economy does not suffer. And even if the economy wants to suffer, let's be sure that after the suffering, we'll start seeing the gains. Not that we suffer now and then we'll go back to status quo.
Now, ECOWAS is setting up a committee to look into the issue of this border closure. What are your expectations from this? Well,
our expectations is that it will lead to the eventual resolution of what we have now, and then probably it will be, made, our neighbors will be made to comply, to understand that if we have to keep on trading, you need to play by the rules. You can't keep on taking advantage of a country simply because you are their neighbors. I'm sure they will address that. I'm also sure they will also look at Nigeria and say, look, we've already agreed with them and an agreement has been reached probably. I think you can open your land borders now. Because whether you like it or not, it's affecting the entire sub-region. And in terms of trade, if you look at ECOWAS, Nigeria accounts for about 77% of export from, in the region. So you can see that area being kept at bay because of this policy. So we are expecting that it will be resolved, but we are more concerned with Nigeria benefiting from all this by strengthening our institutions and ensuring that we put measures in place that if tomorrow they fail to, or they relapse, or they stop complying, they still won't have the kind of successes they've had in the past, dumping all those products on us as a country.
All right, so what would be the implications of this continued border closure on the AFCTA, which we signed recently?
That's a concern because AFCTA is due to take off in July. So if we don't address this, okay, rather than see it from the position of so much trouble also, we've always looked at it. If this is addressed properly now, if we ensure that they follow what they are supposed to follow, and we also we address our own institutions properly, by the time the AFCTA takes off, it won't be a challenge anymore. We would have gone ahead to look at the possible issues that might arise as a result of other countries. Don't forget, for now it's just West Africa. By the time the AFCTA takes up, it will be all Africa countries bringing into Nigeria. Nigeria remains a major market. Everybody wants to bring their wares and to sell in Nigeria. And when you look at the cost of production in Nigeria presently, is high. Now, in some of these countries, cost of production is low, it's very cheap. So they can as well produce and bring in and then fail to comply, just like the ECOWAS countries, our neighbors are failing to comply now. So you see, it's more on us to do things right, inwardly.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Dr. Matthew.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Matthew Ojo is the Assistant Director General of Research and Advocacy of Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We'll take a break again, and when we come back, we do an opening call to the Nigerian Stock Exchange as well as London. Just stay with us.